The year 2020 was scary for all of us. We were being told to stay home because of this nasty disease that was spreading. But for my next guest, they were staying home for different reasons. His wife had just been diagnosed with cancer, and the future was unforeseeable, not just for all of us, but especially for him and his family. Today, he's going to share his story, his love story, the journey, and the tragic loss of his wife, what life is like going through the grieving process, being a single father, and finally deciding to date and learning how to date all over again. We're going to talk about all of this and so much more right after this. What is mindset? Our mindset is based on what we believe, and anything we believe in, we put into motion. I have spent my life putting the mindset of perseverance into motion, and now I am here today to share my journey along with others whose mindsets have changed the course of their lives. Hi, I'm mindset coach Lorraine Lindsey, and I believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. So are you ready? Welcome back to another episode of the Lorraine Lindsey podcast. We are all about mindset here. We believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. And today we're going to be talking about life-changing things that happen in our life unexpectedly and what we have to do to kind of move forward. And I have a guest who I know very near and dear. He's a dear, dear friend of mine that is going to share his story for the first time to hopefully give some insight and some wisdom to maybe people who are going through something very similar. And I know that you're going to be very candid today, and I appreciate you coming here because we've talked about this for a long time. We have.
I know.
And
We're doing it.
We're doing it. We're finally doing it. Yeah. And I am so appreciative because I know, this is going to be a little nerve-wracking for you a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
But we're in this together. So Jason, welcome. Thank you for finally coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Gracing us with your handsome presence.
Oh, I appreciate that.
How are you today?
I'm doing good.
Are we ready to have this conversation?
Yeah, we can do it.
Yeah,
we can do it.
First of all, I've known you for a very, very long time. Mm-hmm. How long has it been? 20-some years now?
It's going to be 22 years next year.
And ironically, when we met is actually when you kind of first
noticed
that your wife.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Alyssa, and let's talk about that night. Let's start there.
You remember that night? It was a karaoke night.
It's
just a place that doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Named.
We were definitely some karaoke mofos, right?
Oh yeah.
Still are.
It still are.
So talk to us a little bit about that. That first time that you kind of.
Oh, well, okay. Besides, we all met you that night.
Right.
We were at the place. Alyssa, my wife Alyssa, she had just. We worked in television news together. We worked here in town at Channel 3, the NBC station. And she had just started, maybe about a month before that night. And I'd been there about a year. And when I say I first noticed her, because we didn't have the same schedules and things like that. And we didn't always go out and do stuff together. But I remember that night. I remember she got up there and she belted out like, I think it was Madonna. And, I did my thing with the guys that I knew. And we would do that stuff. We would all go out together from work all the time. That's what it was like back in that day. I mean, and then you were there, and then you kind of became part of the gang. And
I know. Man, good times.
That was a good
we used
time.
to have so much fun.
I know.
So here you are, you see her. So how was it that you and Alyssa began your whirlwind of romance? Because obviously you see her, obviously she's beautiful. I mean, here's a photo of her, of Alyssa. And there's this beautiful brunette with this beautiful infectious smile.
That picture right there.
Yeah. And then how do you go from, okay, we're coworkers, I'm definitely noticing this beautiful woman here, to starting this romance for the two of you?
I mean, it didn't start overnight, and it was kind of, it took some time, but you spend a lot of time hanging out with people, going out, and you work very close together and those kind of things, and you just start to bond. And, we started really just kind of casually, I'll put it. And it took, but obviously, when I met this girl, I was blown away, and I would love to have a relationship with her. It took about a year, I think, for that to kind of
did it really? You had to put in some work, huh?
I had to put in some work. And it was like, what do you wear down a person to get to that point where she's like, okay, I will date you. You know what I mean? And yeah, that first year, we had known each other before Alyssa passed. We knew each other for 18 years, and but it took about 3 years to really solidify because we did start dating,
Mhm.
and then there's this. We dated for about a year before we had like our breakup,
Right.
and
So tell me about that. I mean, you're dating for a year, young love, right? And go through all the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of young love, and so you guys have this breakup.
yeah. Well, I mean, young love is a good way to put it because I'd only really been in love with like one person up to that point,
Mhm.
which was my like high school into college girlfriend.
Mhm.
And that's like when you say young, that's really young love. Um, but definitely fallen in love with Alyssa. And we broke up. When we broke up, it was summer of '04, and there's probably a lot of reasons that I don't know. But it was one of those breakups where you can feel like the distance kind of pulling people apart,
Mm.
and not quite sure why. I think what it was is I probably just needed to grow up a little, you know.
Mhm.
And we split for about 6 months, and those 6 months, bless you, kind of turned into a little bit of like a self improvement course. I think for the both of us.
Interesting.
Yeah, like we both
You
started
just
like.
figuring things out, or what?
I know that she in that period, she would see a couple of people, and I started seeing a couple of people. We both got to the gym, got in excellent shape. We weren't in terrible shape or anything like that.
Are those breakup bods?
Exactly,
Mhm.
breakup odds. Yeah, I never heard that before.
Yeah.
That's a good
We
one.
all do that. It's
Yeah?
like, oh, they're gonna see me and they're gonna regret that this is not working out.
Well, we both did that to each other. Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah. And so that whole period, yeah, it was one of those things. When we did break up, I didn't want to let it kind of go. You kind of have to.
Right.
And I guess I always kind of subscribe to the idea that if it's kind of meant to be, it will.
Right.
Somewhere down the road. Barry Manilow wrote that song.
And it's not a bad idea because lo and behold, you all got back together.
Yeah.
And so what was that like? When was that moment for you? I mean, you get back together and you get back into the relationship. But what was it like for you at that moment that you felt like you knew, like, I want to marry this woman?
I just knew it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was so weird when we did get back together. I just knew it right off the bat.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, like I'm not gonna mess this up. I'm not gonna act a fool or anything
You're
like
not going to
that.
lose her again.
And she came around like the same exact way. It was strange. I remember she'd written a note to me that I still have, and it's just a really nice note. It's like one of those notes where it's just like you can't believe I'm in love, and I feel this and that and stuff, and I break that up time to time and look at it and stuff.
So what point after you guys got back together did you pop the question, or how did that happen? And then you get married?
We got married in '08. So it was about 3 years after we got back together. Oh man, she looked so
Beautiful
phenomenal that day.
Right? Just
Yeah.
a blushing bride, like literally.
That was a good wedding too. That was a good party. That was one thing. Like Alyssa and I loved good parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were really big into that kind of together, like just being out in the scene and doing stuff. We were very much in sync on that. We wanted our wedding to just be a
Big
blast,
party.
and it really was. So we got married 3 years after we got back together, and yeah, so we were married for 12 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask. Okay, so you get married.
Mm-hmm.
Then at some point you decide to expand and you have your beautiful daughter,
Yeah.
Lola. So how long were you guys married before you had Lola?
That was 3 years till Liz was pregnant, and we didn't really think about it until maybe the year before.
Yeah.
So maybe the trying stage was only about a year, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny because when you decide to have kids, I feel like from my perspective, at least the way that I've done it, which is the only way that I know to do it, is if you're like so in love
Mm-hmm.
that you're like, okay, we can make this even bigger. know?
I love that. That sounds so beautiful.
It wasn't a thing like where Alyssa felt like time's running out or something like that,
It was just that was really beautifully said. I love that. Wow.
Yeah.
So Lola comes.
Oh no, okay, I'll tell you the story.
Yeah,
I'll tell
story.
a story about when Alyssa found out she was pregnant.
Okay.
Okay, this is kind of a funny story. So I'm laying on the couch at our old house. We bought a house about 2 years before Lola was born. Our first house, amazing house in like a mid-century neighborhood here in Vegas. I'm on the couch. It's a Sunday. I'm watching Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift.
It's funny you can remember that exact
You always
moment.
remember the little details.
Yeah.
You always remember the little details. What's the language level on this show? Is it?
You go for it.
So
Just,
Alyssa
yeah.
comes in the entryway doors there. And in just her voice, which I can't replicate, she's like, I'm fucking pregnant. I'll never forget that. I got up and I like put on this dance song and we just started dancing.
I love it.
I was so happy.
Do you remember the song?
Yeah.
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 Aw, that's special.
It was Danza Kuduro.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Why'd you choose that song?
It was a big hit. It was
Okay.
just in Fast 5. I was watching Tokyo
It's like-
Drift and Fast and Furious movies going on.
Does Lola know that story?
She knows that story. She loves those movies.
It. I love
She
it.
loves those movies.
I love it.
It's so crazy.
So fast forward. I mean, you have this beautiful relationship, 15 years together, 12 years married,
Yeah.
and then 2020 happens. Tell us about that time.
When we got to 2020, it was crazy because everything was just firing on good cylinders. And 2019 was a really good year.
Mhm.
Alyssa had a fantastic career by that point, and my career had changed. We weren't working in TV news anymore. She was a casino executive, and she worked Venetian Palazzo, and I was freelance writing and doing all kinds of other projects and stuff that I love to do. And yeah, Lola was in second grade. She's in the middle of second grade. You know what? I remember the day. So what happened with Alyssa was she started to get like something was going on right in the back of her neck, and it was causing like a sore, like something was going on that happened in the back of her throat. Couldn't figure out like why. If it was just one of those kind of, how sometimes you get a little sore in your mouth, and
Like a
it'll go
kink
away.
or sore or
Yeah,
something.
something like that. She ended up getting it biopsied, and I didn't want to think that it was anything serious.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember we went to the doctors on March 13th, which was Friday the 13th, which sucks because I always take that day as like a big celebration day for Friday the 13th movies. I'm such a nerd. And
It's your thing. I love it.
and then, we've gone to the doctor, and the doctor said it was, it was cancer.
Mm.
And I just remember like squeezing her hand. And I really honestly didn't think that it was going to be that bad. And the
Right.
doctor was like, it's treatable.
So the doctor was optimistic. He didn't think, or he or she didn't think it was going to be anything. And then what?
She started, she first had to have surgery to have it, because it was a tumor, had to have it removed, which was right in her neck, and it was like wrapped around, it was a little bit wrapped around her jugular too. It was
Wow.
a complicated surgery. And she had to recover. Somebody generously donated their like spare home for her
Wow.
to stay at post-surgery in California, because that's where she went and had it done. And her mom was there too. Alyssa's mother was remarkable, a wonderful person. And they stayed there, and I was home in Las Vegas with Lola, and we came out to visit, and it was only a couple of weeks of recovery, and then she came back home. And when she got back home, then it was just like the four of us at the house, because Monica, my mother-in-law, stayed with us too. For a little while there, maybe about a month, it was just really great. It was just really great, stay home, quarantine, kind of fun. But then she had to start doing treatments, which wasn't just chemo, but she had to have a radiation treatment because it was, her neck, which made it really hard for her to swallow. She had to do tubes, feeding tube during the summer. And then you start to see the effects of chemo, and anybody who's ever seen it knows how terrible it is.
Yeah.
But she made it through that kind of midsummer, kind of June, July.
Was it, gosh, it's like so hard to go through that and to see that and feel, I'm assuming, just incredibly helpless.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the world is shut down where, people would want to see and visit, and you can't do that. What was that like for you all as a family, for your dynamic?
That made it incredibly hard. So great that her mom was there. But her sister, who was the other closest person in her life, still in California
Right.
with her two kids and my brother-in-law, and they couldn't come out. Friends would be able to stop by and say hi. Yeah, it's no good to have to go through something like that when you can't have. You can
The
have a
community.
support system, yeah, and you
Yeah.
can have community, but you can't have them close to you.
Right.
She probably, Alyssa would have hugged every single person that came through.
Because it's scary, because now there's this thing, this virus that's out there that no one really knows. And her immune system can't afford to be exposed to something like this. I mean, let alone anyone else for that matter, but she was especially vulnerable
Yeah.
to it. So really having to keep people away.
Which means I had to stay away. Lola had to stay away.
Yeah.
And Lola couldn't be with her friends. Not that they were out, playing all the time anyway, but we did have fun, the four of us, and we tried to keep everything. I mean, she still had a birthday party for Lola. I remember we kind of had it out front, and people came and they distanced. I remember that. But at that time, the chemo had really kind of worked her over a little bit. It wasn't great, but she did make it through that, and that was, that set us up for a really good August and September. And we were able to do a little bit more traveling. I remember in September, because our anniversary was September 19th, and we did go out to California and went to the beach for a little while. But then at the beginning of October, they told her that she needed to go back into treatment because the cancer was still there.
Was that a shock to you all? Were you expecting that? I mean, was there any anticipation, or was it going to be like, you're going to get this one round of treatment and that should, because the doctor initially had said it was treatable.
Yeah, I really thought that it would knock it out. I think I was being overly optimistic. I think that, and I don't want to say that I was in denial, but maybe it was a little bit. They told her because it had spread. Now it had spread to other parts of her body, which made it really, she did not want to go through those treatments again. And, when you go through that stuff, you lose weight. And the fact that she couldn't eat normally anyway because of the radiation here, her body was very weak. And when she went back into the treatments, it was especially hard for her. And that was October when we were told that. And then, she had treatment started, I think, at the end of October or November. And then it was right after Thanksgiving. It was right after Thanksgiving. Her sister was able to come out for Thanksgiving. That was good. And she had to do one of those treatments. And she would always tell me that kind of in advance. Okay, when I get back, let's say it was on a Tuesday or something. When I get back on Tuesday, I'll be okay. Wednesday it'll start to kick in, and maybe Thursday I'll just be completely wiped out and not be able to get out of bed. And just have to prepare for that. And so that was kind of the case that weekend after Thanksgiving. This is really kind of the first time I kind of talked about it.
Yeah. Are you okay to talk about it?
Yeah, I can talk.
Okay.
I mean, you and I have talked about it, and I know I've shared the story with
But I just want to make sure
people.
you're comfortable, because I know it's a very hard conversation.
Yeah, and I'm not like exploiting it or anything like that.
Of course not.
It's what happened. It's what happened. And if anybody was ever wondering like what happened was just, it was a Saturday. I remember she said that I need to take Lola out and to take for a drive or something so she can just rest. And I mean, rest as much as she was probably just feeling sick and terrible. And we did. So I took Lola for like a 2-hour drive, like all around the valley. But Alyssa was having trouble eating and drinking that morning. And then when we got back, because her mom was still there, her mom had said that she was still having trouble. And we were trying to get her to eat and drink. And then her mom started calling the doctor to get, some guidance. And it was weird because she started just kind of going in and out a little bit. Not like unconscious, but just not, like, hey, listen to me, and she's not there. The doctor said to take her to the hospital in Henderson. So that's what we decided to do. And actually, I couldn't get her out of bed.
Did the doctors, did they have any idea at that moment what was making her feel as though, because she had just started treatment again, correct?
Yeah.
And were you thinking, oh, this might be just a side effect from all the treatment, or?
I mean,
because you don't really know. This is all brand new to you. There's no way you could possibly have any idea what's getting ready to come from this,
I don't know. And on her death certificate, it says cardio something or other. That I can't remember off the top of my head. Okay, so I will say, but in a weird speculative way, I remember when my mother passed, and that was 2018, and she had pancreatic cancer. There was one day where she was getting these whatever treatment it was, the chemo
Okay.
treatment, and her blood pressure went down or something. Like, what do they call it? A crash or something?
Yeah, like her blood pressure dropped.
Yeah, and they
Uh-huh.
had to get her to the hospital like right away.
Okay.
I wonder. That's all pure speculation. Maybe
Right.
that could have been the thing, but whatever the case, I mean, that's the only thing that I can relate it to. Whatever the case, the doctor said to get her to the hospital.
And he told you a specific hospital to go to.
Yeah, in Henderson. So I had to have a buddy come over to help me carry her, and it had just so happened that I had two other friends that were just kind of joyriding in a convertible just around the neighborhood, just enjoying the day. And when they drove by the house, I was like, "Can you guys come inside and help?" And we did. We carried her to the car, but she did not seem to be all there. God, I mean, can you imagine like Lola, like walking out to the car like that, and seeing your mom, and her mother was there too, and she's like, my buddy was driving in front of me, and we could go to this hospital. The hospital is 20 minutes away, and we live closer to UMC, and sometimes I feel like I'd just gone to the other hospital.
You can't do that to yourself, though. Because the doctor, you called the doctor. The doctor said, this is where you need to take her.
Yeah.
If you would have taken her to a hospital that was closer because you're like, no, I'm taking her somewhere close, and the same outcome, you would have blamed yourself for that.
For not taking her to the hospital that told me to take her? Yeah, I suppose you're right. Yeah.
So, and do you feel like that's something that you've been carrying?
Oh, yeah, I definitely carry it.
Yeah.
I just don't know. But by the time we got her in the car, I kind of feel it was too late then. Like I'm driving. You're like driving, and you got this person here, and you can just like yelling, like, like stay with me, all that kind of stuff, And get to the hospital, honking on the horn, have somebody come out, and they did. They brought a wheelchair out, but they couldn't like help. I had to like get her out of the thing myself, which must have been maybe COVID related. I don't know. They wheel her into the emergency thing, and you're just sitting out there. You're sitting out the curtains closed, and all you hear is the stuff that you hear from like medical shows where they're like, clear, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that was it, and she was gone. And it was just like, so they come out. The guy comes out, and he says, your wife passed. And I go in there, and I guess I don't mind sharing. So I just like drop to my knees, like right on. She's laying on what's it called, a gurney, just wailing, just unbelievable. Like people all over the hospital must have heard it, and remember everything that I was saying. Just no, and I kept screaming, "It's impossible." That's what I kept screaming, "It's impossible." And at one point, because I don't know how long I was going on for this, like somebody, doctor or nurse or whoever, a woman put her hand on my shoulder and was like, "It's okay. Get it all out," or something like that.
It's so like,
I know she was trying to be helpful, but it really just snapped me back to reality. And I was like, whoa, what's going on?
Right.
And that was it.
Yeah, and Jay.
I know, right? That was the first time I ever told that story out loud.
It's tragic, it's so sad. And I thank you. I'm kind of at a loss for words right now because I knew her, you know what I mean? Like, sorry.
She always liked you. I know you. It's not like we all hung out and did stuff. We did in the early days.
Right.
But then, once you get married and stuff like that, it's not the same. But yeah, she always thought Lorraine was great.
Yeah. And I just remember the last time I saw her, which was at the Venetian. We were both working there.
Yeah.
And there was a opening of Mercados, the restaurant.
Was that one time I saw you?
Yeah.
After we
and
just
I
got
hadn't
back into
seen
town?
you for years or whatever. And I didn't even know she was working there. And we were all sitting at the table together. I see you. I'm like, Jay. And then I see Alyssa. And I'm like, oh my gosh. She's like, I'm working here. You work here. We actually sat together and we were, trying all the different samples of drinks and eating all the great food that was there. And
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that because I heard your voice. Your voice, your voice and Alyssa's voice, very distinctive voices. That's something that Alyssa was known for, was having a very distinctive voice.
Yeah, she did actually. That's very, and her smile.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think she was a little self-conscious about her voice when she was a little younger.
Was she?
Yeah, because it sounded, Valley Girl-ish and stuff, but
yeah.
Oh my God, so much.
So you go through all of that. I mean, you've got to now go home and tell your daughter.
Yeah, well, Alyssa's mother brought her to the hospital.
Mm,
Um, and when I left I'm in the room where Alyssa is, and my best friends come in. My two buddies and our other friend, who we're all best friends. And my one friend, she had taken Lola to whatever waiting room. And I will say this: more than anything in my life, I am so happy for the people that were actually
we're there.
Yeah, like it's not like somebody was missing or anything like that, but it's like COVID, and my friends, the three of them, they dropped whatever they were doing, and they're married, they have families and stuff like that,
And they were there.
and they were there. And these are the same people that were there at our wedding. I mean, when my two buddies were the groomsmen there. Yeah, I mean, so these people, I'm bonded to them for life. But I remember I like ran down this hall to like get to Lola, and it was just like hugging her and stuff like that, and just I remember telling her something like, it was going to be up to us now to keep going or do our best or some ridiculous thing. I said, I think she was like in total shock.
Yeah.
For a while.
Because how old was Lola when she passed?
I was 8. She was 8.
She was 8.
Yeah. Because it's been 3 years. Yeah.
Lola, let's talk about her for a second.
Isn't she amazing?
What a just. First of all, I love this picture of her. It's interesting because she's such a unique combination of both you and Alyssa.
Yeah.
Like in so many ways. Like she looks, because she's got the blonde hair and the blue eyes like you, but yet she's got like that smile and that personality, like and certain features like her mama, but the resilience of her, the way she is with her papa, and the way she has been so resilient, because we're few years later now since Alyssa has passed.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because you faced some other tragedies. I mean, Alyssa's mother had passed away.
Yeah, Alyssa's mother passed in August of last year. And it's the two of us weren't like the closest when Alyssa and I were married, but then after, yeah, like she just became my mom.
Yeah.
And I loved my mother-in-law. She was so amazing. And she would come out and stay, Lola and I. I mean, that first year, which would have been all of 2021, it was just about, for me, it was just about keeping everything together. I even remember the day after. It sounds weird, but like the day after that time that day at the hospital, like I got up and I was like, I need to keep doing everything the same. I don't know why I had that feeling, but that was a feeling that I had. That means I got up at like 6 a.m. and I went to the gym to swim, and I remember I couldn't even do it. And then I just came home. I mean, Lola and everybody were still asleep, but I tried to get Lola to get her ready to go back to virtual school or something, without rushing her too much, but also without waiting too long. But she talked to somebody that was important for her. She they had like
kind of like grief counselors or something
that specializes in children to talk to her, and that process, I think it went a year.
Do you think it was helpful for her?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because by the end of it, the way it works with the professional and Lola is I'm not there.
Right.
And they kind of keep it together. I think it's part of the process to keep the sessions personal between the two of them. But by the end of it, then you're able to share stuff. And I remember what it was like. She was able to write a story or maybe a note to her mother or something like that.
Aww.
Something special like that. And yeah, so she made it through that. And I will always talk about her mom with her. And the way we talk about it, it's almost like she's not gone.
Right. Which I think is beautiful that you do that you guys keep her alive, so to speak,
Yeah. So we did that. 2021 was good. 2022 was when we started to, you get back out into the world a little bit more because you're all vaccinated and all that kind of stuff. And so the last 2 years have really just been about figuring out what we're gonna do
Yeah.
and how I'm gonna do things.
So let's talk about that a little bit
Yeah.
because at some point, you're a young man, you have a young daughter,
Yeah.
you had this plan for your life, for your family. This was not the way it was supposed to end, obviously and clearly.
Mm.
And at some point you decide, okay, you know what? I need to date. I need to go out there.
Mm.
What was that like? Because I know you and I have talked about it quite a bit off camera. Like, hey, the last time I dated, I was this age.
Yeah.
And now I'm in this, I'm in this situation of needing and wanting to, not just for you, but for your daughter as well, to, meet somebody. What has that been like for you?
Well,
When did you know, or do you know? Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
And when did you know, or do you know? Like, how do you know when you're ready for it, or if you ever will be, for that matter?
Oh, if you ever will be, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if it ever will be, but I think that there's a lot of things that you can do in your own life to help yourself that makes you feel a little bit more prepared for that kind of a thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right. Alyssa and I, we fell in love in our 20s. So that's like my frame of reference for
Right.
dating. I mean, you're not in that era anymore. It wasn't a thing. You also have to be mindful of people, Alyssa's memory, things like that. I remember one time I did go out. I was just hanging out with people, with friends that I knew and a person that I had just met, take a picture, and it ends up on Instagram. And my mother-in-law, she didn't directly ask me. I remember she asked my friend. She was like, "Who's this person in the picture standing next to Jason?" And she wasn't upset. But my mother-in-law didn't want me to keep anything from her. So she wanted to ask me about it. I was like, "Oh, I met this, nice person, friend of this person's, whatever. It's not anything." And she was like, just be honest with me. Just make sure you tell me the truth. And I'm like, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, you kind of have to have those conversations, I think, with people in your life. Like my friends is a little easier. It hadn't maybe until about the last year where they were like, you can go out there and you can do that kind of thing.
Because they want to see you happy. And
sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I had a conversation with my sister-in-law this year, I remember. And it wasn't like a go out and get her approval kind of thing, but hey, what do you think about this? And she was all for it. It's you and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
It's really hard to come from my situation and think about going out into a dating situation because, like, Alyssa and I didn't break up.
Right.
We weren't married and got divorced, and nobody's mad at anybody, or there's no
like jaded bad story behind it where you're like bitterly going out there in the world trying to figure things out and get somebody better.
Right, exactly.
It's like, how do I not, I don't want to use the word recreate because you're never going to be able to recreate it, nor would you want to.
Can't do that.
But it's like, that was something so special. Will I ever have anything even remotely close to that?
Exactly.
And I remember you had said something about feeling exposed like this.
Oh,
talk about that a little bit.
I do. I feel totally exposed because that's my thing. So let's say you did break up with somebody, and then you say, "Oh, yeah, maybe there's a story behind it," and you hear the story, this and that. To understand it, for me, it's just straight, simple. This person died,
right?
And everybody knows that. And a lot of people do know that. I mean, Alyssa was pretty well known,
right.
In the community. I mean, they wrote about it in the paper after she passed. A friend of ours wrote an article. But it's not like I'm thinking everybody looks at me and says, "Oh, there's that widower guy."
Right.
But sometimes there's a part of me that wonders, is everybody looking at me thinking, there's a widower guy.
Right. And another thing you said, and it's so interesting because I think like these are the things that, how do you ever be prepared? I mean, you can never possibly be prepared to be in this situation in your life at being so young, right? Yeah. And I remember like a conversation you and I had is like, if I'm in the store with my daughter, for example, and they see this single father, what are they thinking? And thinking like, are they going to think I'm, a divorced guy, that I left my wife left me?
Sure, there's a million things that people
different things that people can come up with. And it's like, knowing that that's kind of a part of who you are now, and that people are going to have ideas and conversations in their mind about it. How does that make you feel?
Well, it's one of those things where you're like, you're fully yourself if you're thinking that people are out there talking about you or thinking about you. But I mean, there are scenarios I know
Right.
there are people that are out there gossiping about you.
Right.
You know what I mean? For whatever reason, they're trying to put your business in the street. And that's a different, that's
Yeah, it
an
is.
off-camera story. But that's what I mean by feeling exposed.
Yeah.
And it's just so. I remember saying, like, there was never any woe is me feeling to myself. Like, I didn't do any of that kind of stuff, but I did think to myself, like, how the hell does this happen? You know,
Right.
like, how's this happen to a woman who's super young, and why would this happen to a kid? You know, why would
Right.
she lose her mom? She already lost my mother, so her grandmother, and my father had passed away many years before she was born, so she didn't have grandparents from my side. And then she loses her grandmother, you know,
Right.
my mother-in-law. And we still, Alyssa's dad, we still have him. He's wonderful, but it's not the same experience I had growing up where I had the sets of grandparents.
Right.
And sort of that kind of, with the exception of my parents being divorced, that kind of traditional family kind of thing.
So it's like creating a new normal for yourself.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out, how do I even define that? And how have you thus far? Because like you said, it's one thing where, a married couple decides that it's best for us to go our separate ways. It's best for us to divorce. And even in that scenario, co-parenting and that being a thing.
Sure.
Like those kind of elements don't exist for your world and for your daughter's world.
Yeah.
So even when it comes to saying, okay, I know that I feel ready to date, but then there's also the aspect of, sometimes I feel ready to date, and sometimes I'm like, and then other times of like feeling and thinking, considering your daughter in that too. So how does that all kind of play out on your head, or you just kind of eat the elephant one bite at a time?
Yeah, no, the one bite at a time is a really good way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah, because first you have to consider Lola in every decision.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think for us moving forward, we took a lot of big steps forward this year. Because we moved to a different part of town. Lola had gotten into a new school, and so we moved to a new neighborhood. And that was a really big change for us, and I think it was a positive one. The house that we lived in, it's not like I walked around that house every day and was like, oh, memories and stuff like that, but just doing something different, in this case, really big, moving, and for her going to a new school, which she loves, that was the big kind of positive move forward change that we needed. And also kind of trying to figure out where Alyssa exists in my world right now.
Oh, interesting.
Because you're not leaving that behind. You're not forgetting about this person ever.
Right.
And there were a couple of things this year I think that really kind of helped. One of them that really helped. This is weird. I was on her phone. This is earlier this year. It might have been 6-7 months ago. So I'm on her phone because I go through her phone and look at her pictures because the photos on her phone are different from mine. You look at that, and I do that all the time. But then I went to look at her notes app, and I told you. Did I tell you this?
You did tell me.
I did tell you this. Yeah, she had written a note to Lola before she went into surgery, and it was a worst case scenario note, and it was full of like the kind of helpful parenting advice that a mother would give her daughter, stuff like go to college, or I don't smoke, don't do drugs, that kind of stuff. And I remember part of it. I did show this to Lola, by the way. I ended up showing it to her, and she loves it, and she holds on to it and stuff like that on her phone. There was a part in there where she was talking about relationships to Lola, and about how like you want to find somebody who treats you like I think it was either a queen or a princess that she wrote in there. And treat you like a queen that you are, that kind of stuff. And I always remembered that. I mean, I was obsessed with my wife, so I always wanted to be treating her like a queen. She wrote in there, she was like, even though your dad and I might fight, which we did occasionally, but never anything big, never
Mhm.
anything world ending. She wrote, "Your dad is madly in love with me." And that was just like, I was like, she knew. She told me all the time, "I love you back," and all that other stuff, but it was like she knew how much I loved her.
Mm.
And to actually use the words madly in love is accurate. And that might even be an understatement. But
Aw.
but it really just helped kind of solidify things inside for me and just say,
Mm.
you know what? That's true. And she knew it. And there's never going to be any doubt in my mind that she didn't,
Mm.
you know? And that was really helpful. That was kind of a thing that really kind of helped me.
Did it give you some closure?
Yeah, a little bit.
Mm.
And
Because I think during that time, especially when you're sharing the stories, especially towards the end, I'm sure there's many things in your mind like, did I do the right thing? Did I do this? Did I do all the questions of your part and trying to hold it together and trying to be all of these things during that really horrible time for you all as a family. Um, just the questioning could make you wonder, did she really know? And to know that that's something she wrote unbeknownst to you. It
yeah,
wasn't something she declared to you,
yeah,
but something she really felt. It's nice that it gave you the closure that you needed.
it did. Because it kind of, it does answer questions.
Yeah.
And I didn't really get a chance to say any kind of goodbye. The last things that maybe she even heard was just me trying to keep her from not going unconscious.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a big thing. Moving was a big thing. And I've talked about this with you too. Because you kind of like look for ways, how can I keep this person with me?
Mm.
You know, without it overshadowing things, without it kind of taking over. And you talk about being a single parent in like dating world and things like that. And my thing is always thinking to myself, and I remember you stopped me on this too, because I was like, I'm 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 a widower, have like a child. That's an awful lot. And when I said, I'm like, that's an awful lot of baggage, you're like, no, 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 don't say the word
Mm-hmm.
baggage. I remember you saying that. Um, but at the same time, you also have to kind of like look at this reality where it's like, if you're thinking about dating or
Mm-hmm.
meeting somebody, and this would apply to any relationship because if nobody had ever broken up, then nobody would have anything. But it's like, we're here. Let's say we're here
Mm-hmm.
because Alyssa's gone.
Right.
And the person, that's a lot to put on a person too, to ask them to kind of
Is it?
understand that. I don't know. I don't think
I,
anybody
I
can
guess
relate.
let's try words. Let's try words. How about I could be baggage or I could be a complete package,
Well, that
right?
just makes it sound nice.
Well, because it is.
Okay.
And it's not that package isn't to be delivered to any and everybody. It's supposed to be delivered to the right person.
I see where you're going with
Do you
this.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I get that because even as a single mother, and I remember feeling that I was a young single mom and thinking, who's going to want me and having that limited belief. But then I wasn't allowed. I did that because I have a kid and he's little and you know what I mean? And all
Yeah.
this kind of stuff and all those things. But it really doesn't matter for the right person. And I'm going to use the word, some people would be like, oh, that's too much baggage for me, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
some people would be like, wow, what a package. What a great father. He was a committed man, right? Is a committed man. He loved madly. And to me, and look at how resilient and amazing their child is as well. And that's a package. That's a lot of crossing the T's and dotting the I's for a lot of women out there who are good women. Do you know what I mean?
I'm picking up what you're saying. I
Yeah,
mean,
you picking up what I'm putting down?
the stuff about Lola is the best part too. She really is the best.
But I
Uh,
can only imagine. I mean, I cannot even imagine, right? Just really trying to figure it all out. You
Yeah.
know, even I have a few friends of mine that are even divorced after 17 years or 20 years together, and really trying to figure out life. So, for you, what do you see? Do you have a vision for your life moving forward? Because you have all of that beautiful history behind you,
mhm.
even in the even with the tragic story behind it, it still is a beautiful love story,
Yeah.
right? What do you see for yourself moving forward? What's the vision for you and your daughter?
You know, I we didn't have a plan for anything.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of still don't. But the one thing that I have taken away from Alyssa, this I told you about. So I think it was at the end of September. So I was in really not a happy day one time, or maybe a couple of days. I was just not feeling great.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in my bedroom or whatever, and I look over there, and like there's like Alyssa's yoga mat still in the yoga bag. She had she'd done yoga for a long time. She was actually training for like teacher certification and stuff before she had her, really kind of big, a lot of responsibilities job at Venetian and stuff, and then she couldn't be a teacher anymore, but she'd still go to yoga and stuff. And it wasn't one of those things where I was like, I'm not going to do yoga with you. I didn't like refuse. I went to a few classes with her over the years. It just wasn't my thing. And when it came to exercise, I swim, I told you about that. And I saw her yoga mat and I was like, I'm just going to go do that. And I'm going to go sign up for a class. So I signed up for this class at where she used to go. And I took her yoga mat down. And after that first time, my body just felt so loose and good. And the fact that I was able to like keep up with it and, wasn't sore or anything like that. It wasn't weird. And most importantly, I wasn't intimidated by it at all.
Did it also make you feel a connection to her still?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I started doing it frequently. And that's now what I do that now, 4 or 5 times a week. I'll do this yoga. And it feels like the thing that she's a part of,
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, there are so many things I can do in my life that I could do, but it wouldn't like feel that she's a part of it. And I can do that. And I feel like she's a part of it. And it's crazy how, I didn't want to turn this into the yoga show, but it's crazy how
I won't let you.
doing that has really kind of changed my perspective when it comes to things. Like, I feel like I'm not going to be intimidated or afraid to try stuff.
I love that. I absolutely love that you said that. So before we close up, I want to ask you a few questions.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Yeah, shoot.
With everything that you have experienced up until this point, with all of that, what do you think you've learned the most about life?
So I always say that I'm going to try and think of a really cool answer. So
no, just whatever comes to you.
I'm just kidding you. I always say that, and I always tell Lola this too. When it comes to time, it's the one thing that you can't buy and you never get back after it's gone. But you can always like make the most of it when you have it. And there's so many things that are about like live in the moment and do this kind of stuff. And that turns out that stuff's kind of true. So if you're just constantly doing things that are new to you or they feel different to you, you can change yourself, you can evolve, and you'll get a new outlook on things. And that's been kind of my takeaway in this last year, is to really just, it's okay to just be completely unafraid and try to do something different. It just so happens that the thing I chose is something that is really particularly close
to you.
Yeah, with her. You also got to embrace like the people that you love. Oh, for sure. But not just like embrace the fact that they might not be here tomorrow stuff, but you've got to go back and you've got to like thank and love the people that have been there for you. That is such a huge thing.
Yeah.
And don't let those people go.
What about optimism as far as love? Do you ever see yourself being able to have a great love in your life? Different. It will never be like the same, but are you optimistic for that, or is that something you even are open to at this point?
Well, I'm always like hopeful romantic.
Yeah.
Not hopeless.
I mean? I love that.
And I can honestly say that I've, had great lasting love that didn't end for some sort of negative reason. You know what I mean? I don't know how many times in life a person gets to be in love. I always kind of, did you ever see Bronx Tale? And Chaz Palminteri
Yes.
talks about it's like three, you fall in love with three
Yeah.
people, three
Yeah.
great ones or something like that. Yeah. Okay. So I've loved three people. I definitely know that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, it's, I don't know if there's supposed to be more than three. I don't know how it works.
Of course there is.
There is.
Yeah.
And you will just figure it out. But the thing is, I'm also coming from a place that's fully optimistic. I'm not coming from a place where my heart was broken or anything. I was broken in a different way. But don't, which kind of goes back to the exposed thing. Like, I feel like I'm fully optimistic, and maybe that's too much. You can't be too optimistic. I don't want to be one of those super happy people. Fake happy.
Don't be fake happy.
Fake happy. Hello. Look at this smile.
It's adorable. Well, what would you like to leave people with? What would be some final thoughts or things that you would like to share? Because there are people who will be listening to this. And I remember you had said, actually off camera, that you were very intentional saying, listen, I've been reluctant to share this story because I never want this to be a story that is exploiting our lives and things.
Yeah.
And I had said to you, no, not at all. There are people who have lost people that they've loved, a spouse at an early age. And you're like, but I don't even know those people. I feel very alone in this.
I do.
So talk about that a little bit and share with people out there if they're listening and they have a similar story to yours, and maybe they're in the beginning stages of that, or it's just something that's new. What would you, or what could you share with them as some, I don't know, means to calm or some optimism or something? I don't know. I'm just,
Yeah, no, I know where you're going with that. If it's possible to find something that you can do that you are still connected to that person without it being like something that, the way that it is with me and taking Alyssa's yoga mat out there, just doing something that person's still a part of your life without, it's not like, it's different from carrying around a photograph all the time or something like that.
Right.
Well, the pictures are on the phone, but you know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah, I guess one of the ways I'd rather look at it is like not so much after she was gone, but just like when it was there, when it was going on, or like the journey that it took to get there, the journey that it took to get to madly in love, the journey that it took to get to her to that point where she did write me that note was written on that note she wrote about being in love, and she thought it was crazy and everything. She wrote that on a paper towel. I remember that. That was at the beginning. Well, it was after the breakup, the somewhere down the road breakup. And I still believe in that too. I just think that there's a lot more than just the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Which is a really simple thing to say. I don't have
No,
any
but
real
it's
wisdom.
I think it's so beautiful. And it reminds me of something I heard years ago. And I can't remember off the top of my head who said it, but there was a family who was mourning the loss of their child, and they were stuck in grief. And I remember the man said to them, but you had the day that person died was the day. And before that was so much life before that.
Yeah.
So where do you want to focus? And so when you share that thing about the yoga mat, and that's like her evergreen, right? That's of her vitality and her life. Those were things that she enjoyed as a lively human being.
Yeah.
And to be able to have that with you as an expression of her life, not an expression of her death.
That's good.
Yeah. And it seems that you're choosing that, because I think when you first go through grief, that grief is powerful, and understandably, of course, but you get very focused on the grief and what happened and everything that led up to what happened, that sometimes we almost, in that moment, just almost forget all of the life. And I love how you are bringing her life with you, not her death.
I will always like talking about Alyssa. Anybody ever asks, I'll talk about her. So I never shut down on that. And I guess maybe, hey, that's a good piece of advice if somebody was, going through the experience. Just be happy that it happened,
Oh, That's beautiful. Just be happy that it happened, that you got that life with that person. Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. Wow. I think that's a great way to end it. There? Yeah. Jay, I appreciate you. You know, you're a very dear, dear friend of mine. And I appreciate you being open. I think this is good for you, actually, more than anything. I think you needed to share. So? Yeah, I do, actually. I do. And I thank you for looking handsome and having your hair done on point for camera. Because I know how you are about your hair.
Yeah, you know.
I just wanted to make you smile and laugh a little bit. Yeah. But it does look good, though. I have to give it to you. It looks good. It looks good. So thank you, Jay. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
So much. And thank you all so much for watching another episode of the Lorraine Lindsey podcast. And if you have not yet, please do not forget to hit the subscription button and let us know what you think about this last episode. And until next time, ciao.